Alright, I'm back to show you the changing of the glass on this MacBook. It's a 13-inch model. You can see that it's pretty shattered through here. It's got a missing couple pieces of glass at the top. A couple tools you're going to need is some playing cards. You can use anything else that will help you keep it from sticking back together as you heat it up. A couple of suction cups. I have two to help me help pry this off. Opening device, you can use anything that's thin. You can use a putty knife if you want to. I like this little isesamo tool. It's nice and thin and gives me the lift that I'm looking for. Of course, you'll also be needing a heat gun, as this is glued down with sticky tape or 3M double-sided tape around the outside of the glass here. What we're going to do is basically just heat up the glass as we go around. I'm going to keep it nice and warm. You want to make sure it's an even heat as we go through here. Now, if you're removing a non-shattered glass from a MacBook, just change to LCD. You actually won't need to use the opening device as much as I will on this one, just because there's so much broken glass on this one is why I use it. You can also use an infrared thermometer. You can get like a Ryobi or something cheap from Home Depot to check your temperature on this. I'm pretty confident that I know exactly how hot it needs to be at this point, as I've changed a lot of LCDs. You don't want to get it really above maybe 180, 190 degrees, which is too hot to touch. When I heat up this corner right here, this is the kind of starting place I'm going to work on. Get a little bit warmer as we go around. Definitely want to be careful around the camera area on this device as well. Just checking the temp to see how hot it is. I can keep my finger there for an extended period of time. It usually means it's not hot enough yet. Keeping about an inch off of the device. You don't want to get it too close. You don't want to burn the LCD underneath, but you definitely want to get it hot enough to really loosen that tape. It looks like we have our first portion here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this suction cup down here in the corner and one kind of in the middle. I'm going to use these to help pry the glass up as I start to put my device in, or my opening tool in. And this will give us leverage. This is such a large piece that it can be hard and difficult to get started. It's going to help pry it up a little bit. You want to make sure it's nice and warm. You don't want to shatter the LCD underneath. So you want to be pretty careful. I'm going to get a little bit closer to the corner, get a little bit more leverage in the area that I'm looking for. Go ahead and get it started just by pulling it up a little bit here. Not enough to shatter the glass, but I do want to get a little bit of separation so I can get my opening tool underneath the glass. I'm going to give it a little bit more heat as it's cooled down a little bit. One of the trickiest parts of this entire change is getting it started. Once you get it started, it seems to be a lot easier. Checking the rubber gasket around the outside just to see how it's doing it. You can get a little too warm and you can melt it a little bit. And on this particular model, the newer one, it isn't replaceable, so you want to be pretty careful with it. Alright, we're starting to make progress. See, I'm getting a little bit of separation here. I'm going to slide my tool just underneath. And we're just going to slide it around the corner here. And that'll give us the start that we are looking for. And pull up on the suction cup, and that one kind of use my device to kind of cut the tape to a degree. I always want to give upward pressure as you're moving this through. I'm going to put a playing card in here to make sure that that tape doesn't re-adhere itself. And pry up on the glass and move my tool down the side of it. Looks like we've lost the heat, so we're going to go ahead and reheat this side up down here. You know, so because it'll start getting really, really, really hard to move your opening tool down the glass. When you start to feel that bit of resistance, just check the temperature of the glass using your hand. If it's not still pretty hot, then you're going to want to warm it back up. I'm going to move my second suction cup and give me a little bit more leverage on this side here. As I move my device or my opening tool down, pry a little bit more. Alright, and we've made a lot of progress here, so I'm going to stick another card in. Make sure that I don't get that tape readhering itself and lose all of my progress I've made. Now we're hitting a little bit of a shattered spot on the screen. I'm going to give it a little bit more heat here. I started to lose the heat that we were making progress with. Now, like I was saying, if you're just changing the glass only, you can almost just use the suction cups itself to help pull the glass away. You may not even really need to use an opening tool. You do want to make sure you have the right temperature and just take it nice and slow. You don't want to break the glass if you're not trying to replace it. Alright, you can see that I'm starting to make a little bit of progress on this shattered portion. I'm going to start a little bit lower and work back up to a non-shattered spot on the screen. It's hard to get a suction cup to stick when you have a shattered glass. My head's starting to cover it up, fortunately. Try to be very careful with this shattered portion of the glass here. This can be where it gets a little bit tricky. You don't want to have any of the glass push back in onto the LCD. I'm just going to move these playing cards in. Alright. Going to give it a little bit of heat down this side here. And the suction cups I'm using, you can get, like I was saying, off of eBay or Amazon. You can just find them at your Home Depot or your Lowe's in the tile section. They're usually used to hang up sheets of tile. Alright, now that I've made the progress on that side, I'm going to start here on this corner and move down a little bit further. Hopefully get a little bit more separation as we go. Push my playing card down. Trying to use as much of the suction cup as possible without using the opening tool. I don't want to damage the rubber gasket around the outside. And once you get it started here, you can usually pry up a little bit with the suction cup, as long as your tape is hot enough. You don't want to use extreme force. You want to give it a nice even pressure, but not to the point where the glass will shatter. You want to kind of stay in the middle there. Man, I just can't keep my head out of the camera this time. Let's give it a little bit more heat as we go. This has cooled down a lot, so I'm going to make sure I heat it up to the right temperature, so it might take a few seconds. See, it's still a little shattered down here in this corner. So I'm going to try to put my opening tool underneath the shattered piece here. progress. I'm going to move my playing card down. You can see there's a big shatter across the top here as well. I'm looking to see how much plays in my screen to the point where, can I pull it off yet at the shattered portion, or do I need to make some more progress? Start down here in this bottom corner. Give it lots of heat. Always tricky when it's shattered into those places because you want to get all the glass up, make sure you get all the tape up before you start trying to move forward too far. You don't want to get to the point where you go back and you realize that as you're pulling the glass off that you forgot a spot. Sometimes as you're pulling the shattered glass up, it'll collapse a little bit and can warp back in onto the LCD, and that's what we're trying to avoid, is we don't want to replace the LCD as it's working on this model. See some of the tape here, so I'm just going to try and start to pull that up as well. And we're going to give it a little bit more heat. And the goal is not to get frustrated here as well. You always want to make sure you have enough heat on it. If you start pulling without being properly heated, then you will start breaking the LCD or the glass, which could in turn break your LCD as well. So to use a little bit different metal opening tool here, something a little bit more girth to it. Try to slide it down the tape on this side here. This is a really sticky portion of the screen. If you have something long and thin, then once you've made a progress on a shattered screen like this, you can just slide your tool down underneath the glass and the tape would be the goal. And I'm giving it a pretty gentle pressure. I'm not using all of my force to get it in there. Making some progress here. And I'm pulling up on the suction cup at the top to help separate. Put my opening tool in, and now that I got past that really tricky spot, it should come up down here in the corner for us pretty easy. You may have to give it a little bit more heat. This has been a decent amount of time since I heated the first round. So heating up the corner, and then we'll go down the front here to where the kind of the keyboard area is at. Alright, you can see that I have a little bit more shattered portion here. I'm going to put my playing card underneath, make sure that it doesn't reseat itself down. The nice thing about using the playing cards, other than like a plastic razor blade or any of the other tools you can use to help keep your LCD open, is the fact that they're cheap and they give you a lot of surface area. Alright, now we're starting to make progress. I'm going to start to pull it up a little bit here. That'll give me the option to start to pull the tape up. Now, once you've made a pretty decent amount of progress like this, you can use a little bit less heat. If you feel a lot of resistance, you may want to heat it back up. But once you get the tape kind of started to pull up, it's much easier to get it started. So I'll go ahead and try to put my suction cup down here in this other corner and get started down here as well. Give it a little bit of heat. Alright, put my suction cup down here. Go ahead and pull it just a little bit here. Let's see if I'm making any progress on lifting it. So I'm pulling up on the other suction cup that I have on the other side. I'm going to try to loosen a little bit more of the tape down here at the bottom of the screen. I'm making some pretty quick progress down there. You can see how far I pushed that spudger in there. Unfortunately, I'm not getting really good suction as this screen is shattered. I'm trying to find the biggest point where I can actually get an option to pry from. You can see that it wants to come up. Looks like I may have to start from this side down here. I'll try making a little bit more progress down this side. There's a little bit of tape still stuck in here, which seems to be my problem. Now, I wouldn't stress too much about not touching the LCD because I always clean them before I put my new glass on, or at least blow it off and possibly use some alcohol to clean it. There we go. You can see that now that I've done that, I've popped up that bottom corner much easier. I'm going to go ahead and fold it back. And there's some tape down there, a piece of screen. Alright, so I've separated the majority of the screen off of it, and I do have some glass still attached where it's completely shattered at the top and down the sides here. This will be probably the more tedious part of the video of watching me kind of scrape this off. You can see how much is still there. I'm going to give it some heat. Now that the glass is not covering the LCD, you don't want to really heat it too much. You don't want to burn the LCD because now it's out in the open. There's not that air buffer in between the heat and the LCD. But you do want to heat up the tape enough to the point where it'll become pliable. Alright, and then just using my spudger tool here. There's also a camera cable that runs through the middle of the screen here. You can see that it's right where my spudger is currently at. You want to be careful not to pry directly on this. You want to pry on the two metal portions of the screen around it. If you were to cut this cable, then it could lead to some issues with the top camera. Now, I'm not being extremely forceful. I am just sliding it in and then prying it up a little bit with my tool. So I lost my heat, so I'm going to go ahead and heat the screen up again. Notice I didn't put a ton of heat on there. I don't want to hurt the LCD. sliding my spudger underneath the glass and prying upwards and getting that separation. And again, I'm heating the glass up. Now, I did buy my new glass just off of eBay. It was like 20 bucks, which is a pretty cheap deal. Just make sure you have the right model number of the glass that you're looking for to the one you've matched on eBay. Make sure it's the correct fit. And some of them will come with tape, and some of them will come without tape. I'll show you how to tape this if your glass comes without tape as well, and how to get prepared for that. And then also what to do if it does come with tape on it. It's much easier. After you get the glass removed, it's only maybe 2 or 3 minutes to put the new glass in. It's pretty simple stuff. Again, some heat. And then using my spudger to go underneath the shattered glass and just pry upwards. Now I'm starting to use a glove here. I got a couple of shards of glass in my hand, so using a glove can prevent that from happening. I usually don't like to use a glove, as I like to feel how the ambient temperature of the glass itself, but in some cases, if it's just too shattered, you may have to use a glove to help you. Now, still have to be very careful as this camera cable runs all the way up the corner of the screen and then off into the middle of the screen. Just trying to get my tool underneath the tape and then pry upwards a little bit. Just using a tweezer to get some of the glass off that was really sharp. And I got some of the tape to come up here, so I'm just going to use that to help pry up the glass as well. I'm being careful not to give too much pressure to slip my spudger underneath the glass and then into the LCD. So you want to take it nice and slow. It'll probably be fairly tedious to do this, but unless you want to replace your LCD, you definitely want to take it nice and easy here. The opening for the cable starts to get much wider, and there's a kind of a camera logic board in here that you want to be careful with, not to pry against. You want to make sure that you're only prying against the metal portion of the frame and not directly onto the board in that middle gap. Alright, give it a little bit more heat. Now as we work our way into the center of the glass here, you want to be very careful. There's a metal ring around the webcam portion of the glass that has 2 prongs that stick in. Most new pieces of glass don't come with this attached. You can use just a little bit of goop, which is a silicone-based glue, or you can use some super glue, although I'm not a huge fan of super glue. It's a little brittle, And when you have a device which you're opening and closing, sometimes that can come loose. So I usually will use something that's a little bit more silicone based. It's got a good hold, but has a little bit of flexibility in it. Starting to make some good progress here. You're starting to see the kind of that logic board that's underneath the top of the frame here. As I use my spudger to help pry this glass up, I only pry against the outside edge of the frame, always against the metal and never against the logic board. Some more heat. Using my tweezers again to pull on the tape that's out there and possibly remove some sharp shards of glass. Alright, and here is the metal connector I was talking about for the camera. You can see that shiny metal portion. It has two pins that sit on the left and the right side of the camera. And you want to be careful not to hurt your webcam here as well. And that's why it's taking such a long time to pry this glass up. And there's a lot of electronics at the top of this MacBook. So we're going to need a little bit more heat. We are getting close to finishing this off. Trying to be very careful as I move down here. I don't want to damage any of the stuff underneath this, which can be a little bit tricky. Like I was saying, just take your time. I'd much rather it take 10 minutes longer than have to spend another 50 or 60 bucks to replace the LCD screen. Now, for some reason, you do get it too hot, and you do damage the plastic bezel around your lid. It is fairly expensive to fix. I think the cheapest one I was able to find was like 60 bucks, 70 bucks for a used lid, because it's a one-piece frame with the plastic, that rubberized gasket bezel around the outside. So you want to be pretty careful not to damage that as you do this. When you're using your pry tools to start it, like your putty knife, or I have that isesamo tool, make sure that when you touch it a little bit first to make sure that it isn't too hot and it'll warp out. Alright, we're almost done. I'm just going to remove the glass portion down here at the bottom of the screen. Just being nice and careful as I move through it. Alright. What you want to do is go around and just kind of blow off your LCD. Make sure there's no additional pieces of tape or glass that's stuck down. You can use your finger just to run your finger along. Anything behind the LCDs or the new glasses you put it down will make it stand off a little bit. We definitely don't want that. You spend so much time prepping this for the new glass. What I'll show you is a link at the bottom of the screen, one to show how to apply the double-sided adhesive, and then one that will have, if you have your adhesive pre-installed onto your new set of glass. I'm just turning the LCD on here to make sure that everything went well and that there's no burn marks or anything in the LCD, and power's on. We're looking good. So if you do need that information on the new screens, or whether to tape or if, how to apply the new screen, go ahead and just click the link at the bottom of this one. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. Possibly subscribe to me if you want to see any phones. I do a lot of additional repairs as well. Again, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.